contact me, or your local HR specialist can walk you through it. All right, three-legged stool of retirement income. It used to be, historically, think baby boomers, you'd have Social Security waiting for you. You'd have some of your savings, which I know is a crazy concept, but some of your own savings, and you have an employer-funded pension plan. So my grandfather worked for Shell oil refinery in Anacortes for like 30, 35 years, something like that. He retired, got a little fishing boat, and fished the Strait of Juan de Fuca until he died. That was his thing, salmon fishing, and it paid for that with Social Security checks, those pension checks from Shell, and they would keep coming in until the day he died. Little different now. A lot of firms have gotten burned from those pension plans because of volatility in the market and how they invested. So today you have Social Security, probably. You have retiree savings, yes, and you have what's called an employee-funded retirement plan. It's called the defined contribution plan. So we'll look at those here in just a second. But firms are very much getting away from the kind of the standard pension plans. So retirement plan program established and funded by the employer and the employees. More recently, it's funded by employees and employer. So two different plan types, and these are kind of confusing, but it's sort of important. It's actually important. A defined benefit retirement plan says, I as the company am telling you, I will define the benefit. This is what you get when you retire. You can think school teachers, right? A lot of them have defined benefit plans still. You stay here for 20 years, then you get, fill in the blank, 60% of your salary until the day you die. Or if you stay here for 20 years, you get $33,000 a month until the day you die. But if you stay here for 30 years, you get $4,000 a month until the day you die. It's basically trying to keep people in a retention system. The defined benefit plan defines the benefit the organization will pay. Most companies, you can see some articles, Sears did this, the GM article is fascinating. This was like $1 billion liability for GM was their pension fund. It's crazy. But most firms now will do what's called a defined contribution plan. That is where I, as an employer, I will say, if you stay here for 30 years, upon retirement, you will have whatever money is in there. You might be a gazillionaire or you might be dead broke. I will not commit to you what I'm going to pay, what your benefit will be, but what I will commit to you is for the next 30 years, this is how much money I'll put in. So a defined benefit plan says, this is what you get. A defined contribution plan, the employer says, this is what I'll pay. So a defined contribution plan might be, I've set up a 401k and I'm going to match you dollar for dollar up to 8% of your income. So you can put 8% of your income over into an account, and I will take whatever you put in and I will match it. So in effect, you'll be saving 16% of your income. Now, how much will be there in 10 years? If I'm the employer, my answer is, I don't know. What about 30 years? I don't know. But we contracted with Fidelity over there to help you with your retirement. In other words, businesses are saying, we are no longer in the business of planning your retirement. We'll put money in and you plan it, you do it. That's a defined contribution plan. Again, the trajectory is firms are going to a defined contribution plan because it's known. It reduces risk. If a bunch of you retire in 30 years, I don't know how much money we're going to have. I don't know what the market is going to be. I mean, I can try to guess, right, through actuarials, but what's more clear is I will tell you what I'll put in your paycheck next week. How you invest that is totally up to you. Two different models. So data, you can see this. Some employers will set up a 401k, will not contribute. Most contribute something. You can see the data here. I've heard as high, well, the IRS actually caps it, so you can't just double their salary. But there are certainly high ends. There's double digit, right? You can get up 12%, 13%. I feel like maybe average of the last 10 years has been somewhere around 8%, 6-8%, something like that. Highly dependent on firm size. Bigger firms, certainly Fortune 500 firms will have a more robust system on average. So let's switch gears a little bit. Let's go to healthcare, healthcare cost. Since year 2000, you can read the data. Basically, everything has gotten really, really even more expensive. And there's a lot of reasons for that. President Barack Obama at the time argued that the main reason for that was uninsured workers. Is that a component? Sure. Any economist that can do basic math will tell you, yes, that matters. If I have no insurance and I show up at a hospital and they're mandated by law to do some kind of a care for me, or I know there's a Catholic hospital in Everett, Washington. They're mandated by their own statutes, not state laws or federal laws, but they won't just stabilize you. They'll actually do whatever they can do to repair you and fix you. Well, if you have no insurance, and that was a $50,000 surgery, whatever it was, that cost is going to get passed to the next person. Who? Me, the one with insurance. I had knee surgery several years ago. I think they said it was a $20,000 surgery. I paid my copay of like, I don't know what it is, $100, $200, and walked out. But that $20,000 surgery, did it really cost $20,000? No, of course not. But that's going to pay for a ton of other things like malpractice insurance, right? In case the doctor does something wrong and they get sued. Or it's going to pay for the last person that got that surgery and didn't pay their bill, something like that. So there's one argument. There's some other things demographically that are also driving this cost. Take the combine of older people, baby boomers, right? Older people with more medical needs and frankly more money to deal with it, and the rapid rise in medical advances and technology. I was on the airplane to San Francisco a couple years ago, and I sat next to a lady who was on the California board of. I was like, "What do you do?" She said, "I'm on the board of bioethics." I was like, "Oh, that sounds boring." She goes, "Yeah, we're the ones for the state of California that decide whether people live or die when we pull the plug." I was like, "Oh, all of a sudden it's not boring. That's crazy." And she was basically laying out the case like we have technology that can keep people alive. They may be brain dead, but we can keep a pulse. I mean, we can do all kinds of stuff for a long time. And who decides when we pull the plug? And all of us have economic opinions and different opinions on that. And that's all true until it's grandma or grandpa, and they say 1 in every 10,000 people come out of this coma, and you would say, well, he or she might be the one. I thought about this the other day as I was preparing for this lecture. I thought, so my dad died when I was 20 years old. I was in college, just graduating. Someone came up and said, "All right, James, what would you pay to go to lunch and for one last hug from your dad?" I'm like, that's a lot of money. Well, with the advances in technology, like I said, and in money that baby boomers have, now all of a sudden there's a market for that. Keep me going longer. Which also drives up costs. Anyway, a lot of reasons for it, and we can talk about the Affordable Care Act in just a minute for what's trying to be done about it. But first, I want to get like an overall framework of specifically health insurance. It is the most expensive component of benefits. Benefits cost on average about 40% of your total payroll, and 25% of that is healthcare benefits. Another way, if you're not a math person, that means about 10% of your total payroll cost is healthcare benefits on average. So there are different ways that we can give medical insurance to people, and pretty much everyone's going to land in one of these spots. There's an HMO, which is a health maintenance organization. That's where it's almost like a vertical monopoly, where the insurance company is also the employer of doctors, nurses, stuff like that. HMOs sometimes get a bad rap. I think there's some good ones. My sister, like me, we had a bunch of kids, and she's got an HMO for all their kids. I think she walks in, has the baby, like everything is in one place. It's not like go to your preferred provider and then get referred over to this hospital. Everything's there, and they're able to cut costs that way. There's also a PPO, Preferred Provider Organization, or opportunity, but usually organization. And that is, you've heard, like, this is your network of doctors. If you choose someone in your network, we cover 80%. And if you go out of network, we only cover 60%. What does that even mean? That means the insurance company has pre-negotiated, predetermined prices for care at each of those doctors that are inside the network. And they'll say, okay, well, they've agreed to charge a certain amount, so we'll cover 80%, whatever it is. Also, Medicare and Medicaid and the uninsured box should be, in theory, close to zero several years after the Affordable Care Act. We're not there, but in theory, the idea is that that box goes away. An HSA is called a health savings account. I won't go into a lot of detail other than to basically say the company will say, we're going to put money in this account for you to spend on your medical care. Whatever you spend it on, assuming it's okay, it's totally up to you. That's helpful for, usually statistically, for young, healthy employees, because someone who doesn't go to the doctor for 10 years, and they put in 5 grand a year, well, you have 50 grand sitting in there that you can use whatever you want for your health needs, and you can transfer it once you leave the organization. Okay, healthcare reform. Everyone knows this one has kind of been a bear. George Bush tried to take on Social Security. It ran into some challenges. Barack Obama took on healthcare, and through kind of a crazy series of events, 3 votes in the House. I think it's 435, something like that, votes total. 3 votes in the House changed the whole thing. So we'd be having a different conversation today if it wasn't for if 3 people switched their voting. It's called the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. It's being phased in. There's a lot of kind of moving parts to it. It's still, of course, being argued about, still being litigated. But the big idea is that we basically try to, if we can eliminate uninsured workers, uninsured people, if everybody has health insurance, then the people who walk in ER and need care, those costs in theory won't be passed on. It'll drive costs down for everyone. There is some challenges. You don't have to Google too far to find this. So the idea is if everyone has preventative care and everyone has health insurance, then emergency room visits should go down. Those are the most expensive, right? The challenge with that, as any behavioral economist or an HR person will tell you, if you give people something for free, they're usually going to take it if it has some kind of a benefit. So if I don't have to pay for insurance and I have to go see my primary care provider for preventative care, right? Physical, screen, stuff like that. I'll skip that. I don't have to pay for it anyway. And then when I have a heart attack, you can just take me into the emergency room because I don't have to pay for that anyway. So the idea was emergency room visits go down. There's a few quotes on that. But what we actually saw in this case in Oregon was emergency room visits increased by about 40%, actually driving up costs, not reducing costs. There's a couple articles if you're interested. But the bottom line here is not necessarily pro or con. It is if you live in the world of HR or management, and certainly if you're trying to understand, explain, and design benefit systems, you need to take into account the PPACA and plan accordingly. Lots of stuff you can look at. In my opinion, on it's totally irrelevant. Family Medical Leave Act. This was established a long time ago, 40 years ago, about. And this says if you get hurt on the job, if you qualify for family medical leave, if you get hurt on the job, then they can't just say, oh, well, you got in a car wreck on the way to work this morning, well, you're fired. No, they hold your job for you. It's unpaid leave, right? Up to 12 weeks of unpaid leave. It's having a baby, it's adopting a baby, it's to care for someone who's injured in your immediate family, stuff like that. And then it broadened out. George Bush broadened it out in the early 2000s. Having to do with like if someone is deployed overseas in the military and they get injured, it's all the way up to 26 weeks of unpaid leave. So without going into a bunch of detail, the idea here is if somebody gets hurt, they don't lose their job, assuming they qualify for it. They won't get paid for being home hurt if they didn't get hurt on the job, right, like workers' compensation, but they get to keep their job and get a chance to get better. So bottom line, I know that was a ton of stuff. When you get the job offer, you're trying to understand your benefits package or trying to design a benefit system, find someone who's a subject matter expert in it. And I said negotiate a better deal. It's just something that I've seen kind of over the years with people in negotiating job offers. They go right to annual salary. I go, that's fine. I get it. I remember at my first job offer at Boeing, I was like, yeah, the salary's fine. Like they're paying me great. But I promised this lady who I want to marry that I'd take her to Europe this summer. So before I say yes, before I sign this, I need 6 weeks off this summer. Is that going to work for you? That's the time to ask, right? You're talking about benefits, right? That's the time to ask because once you're there, you fall into the pipeline. We'll see if we can get it approved, etc. But if they've just gone through a selection exercise and they said, you're the one we want, top choice, screen out everybody else, we really want you, and you say, I'm in, but can I have this computer? Can I have this work location? This is something. You negotiate from a much better position. So anyway, that's benefits.